Why do I have to be so strong? Why can't I just say that something is wrong? I've been waiting, but my patience is fading. I need to put down this heavy guard. My life has been rough. It's left me scarred. I've been running. I went as far as my feet could take me. Now the ice is breaking. I'm afraid I can't hold on. I need you to be my strength. I don't want to be let down. Maybe that's why I'm afraid to let you in. You see, I've convinced the world that I'm above crying, but I haven't convinced death that I'm above dying. Yeah, there's a smile on my face, but you know everything. You know my insides are crying. I can't do this myself. I'm so sick and tired of trying. Why do I have to be so strong? Everywhere I go, I see his face. And I know that I've got to move on, but the sins of my past have got me in its grasp. My vision is shattered. I'm stepping on glass. I can't see through this fog. I want to be there for you, but I want to cry too. So is what I'm feeling really that wrong? Sometimes I want to be weak, and yet I always have to be strong. Sometimes I want to be soft, and yet I always have to be hard. Sometimes I want to be held, and yet I always have to stand. I want to be a woman and not feel like I have to be a woman and a man because I can't. Why do I have to be so strong? I told him. I put my hopes on the shelf. And I gave him of myself. What more must I do to prove that I love you? I've given him my best. And now I'm standing here broken trying to give you what's left. And I feel like everything is going wrong. I thought I was somewhat put together. Had my booty shorts in the summer, in the winter low-cut sweaters, in the spring my back's out, in the fall not much more. Because if I caught a draft, I always had my booze to keep me warm. But this season of my life has got me real confused. I know he's not treating me right, and yet I'm so afraid to say that I'm being abused. So I'm walking around with deep cuts and open wounds. The truth be told, I've got a problem with rejection. And although I've learned that with each new name and number comes a brand new lesson, I can tell you most of my exes ended with a head/heartache, and I really thought they started off as a blessing. Those temps, they did fill voids in my life. They brought those shiny toys in my life. Sometimes I reminisce about those boys in my life, and it's kept me distracted. That's why I'm asking, why do I have to be so strong? Why must I carry the weight of the world on my shoulders? I'm a mother to my mate, a sister to my son, and equal to my daughter, and everyone keeps telling me my priorities are out of order. Let's say at least I'm there. It's more than what my mother was to me. I should have known that my life would be worth nothing more than a couple suitcases of baggage, considering what hers used to be. I am so tired of living in this life, feeling myself dying a death. I live in this life, but I feel myself dying a death over and over and over again. I have cried until it hurt, and I've been on my knees. I've lost everything, including my dignity. I have, in the midst of a crowd with loud people, loud music, hard dancing, drinks passing, still felt alone. Whether his house, my house, our house, I have yet to have a home. Why? Tell me why I have to be so strong. Why can't you just take away this hurt, this pain, and this shame, because I feel like I'll never be good enough. I need a secret place to go. A place where no one can find me, where the enemies of my past are not constantly lurking behind me. I just want to have freedom and joy and life and love. And you know, I could go on and on. But if you grant no other request, at least send someone in my past to say, baby girl, you don't have to be so strong. You know, I love being a storyteller. As a spoken word artist, I get the opportunity to paint pictures with words. I get to tell my personal stories as well as the stories of other people. But it's my personal stories that give my voice incredible value. Just like I believe your stories give your voice incredible value, my stories give me something to contribute to the rest of the world. And I believe your stories give you something to contribute to the rest of the world. And here's the value of a unique story. They're always 100% unique and 100% unmatched. You know, we're all here having a very similar experience. We're seeing the same things, we're hearing the same things, we're smelling the same things, and yet we're processing this experience through the lens of our own perspective. So there's no way for our stories to be 100% the same. In fact, I know if I asked everyone to write down the story of this weekend, I know they'd all be a little bit different. And typically when an idea or an experience or a product is unique, one of a kind, it's inherently valuable. And I find it interesting because in our society, we tend to celebrate people who figured out the value of their unique voice. I love music. Musicians have an ability to take their instruments and tell stories, stories that are as unique as they are as people. Singers and songwriters, the most influential artists of our generations and generations past, have all figured out a way to tell their stories, and we love it. We love when artists are completely authentic and vulnerable, and we go on that journey with them every time we press play. We've even created social media platforms that are dedicated to the sole purpose of allowing individuals like you and I the opportunity to share our unique stories. And for some of us, we're on our phones all day long, clicking and liking stories. You walk into any bookstore, and what will you find? Books, obviously, and authors who are all doing the same exact thing. They're telling stories. Some of those stories are fiction, some of those stories are nonfiction. But here's what I know: every single person, young and old, everyone loves a great story. And I know I've accumulated some 17 million minutes worth of stories. That's over 200,000 hours and 12,000 days. Some people are doing the math in their head. And of course, Ted would never give me that much time to share all of my stories, but I have a ton of them that I could share, and I'm very passionate about sharing my stories today. But the truth is, I've not always been this way. You know, for the first 2 decades of my life, I accumulated some very interesting stories. Both of my parents were addicted to drugs, and they made some pretty horrible decisions that dramatically impacted my life. I was taken away from my parents. I was put into foster care. I've been through the adoption system. I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. I struggled with identity, confusion, incredible bouts of depression. I've even held the hand of someone I loved, and I watched them take their last breath, all before my 20th birthday. So yes, I had a tremendous amount of stories that I could share. But sharing those stories was very difficult for me. Very, very difficult. So I just didn't share them at all. I didn't think my stories had very much significance. And if you had asked me at that time, I don't think that I thought I had much significance. My story was just a bunch of broken pieces that didn't quite fit anywhere. And so I kept them to myself. And then something happened. I found spoken word. And the truth is, spoken word honestly found me. It gave me an outlet to be able to share some of the stories I'd held on to for so long. And I saw a lot of things in my life begin to change as I began to share the stories that made up who I was. Number one, I began to change, right? Finally getting an opportunity to let go of some of the things I had experienced was relief for me. It gave me the chance to be able to be free from things that had been holding me down for such a long time. The other thing that I saw change was my relationships. It was fascinating to me. You know, typically if you have an experience and someone else shares commonality with that experience, you instantly develop some level of connection. But what I found is that as I shared my personal stories, I started to develop relationships with people who were completely different from me, and it blew me away. It's as if my personal stories became a bridge that allowed me to develop these relationships. And this is typically how it would happen. I get invited to share, or even in a personal conversation, I begin sharing a part of my story, and someone would say, you know, I really appreciate you sharing that story. And although they didn't share similar experiences, they begin to tell their own stories. And before you know it, we had this relationship. And I began to really, really value those relationships. One of those in particular is a friendship I have with a 12-year-old kid named Laura. Now, Laura is an amazing person. I met her 3 years ago when I worked as a director for a mentorship program. And, you know, if I were honest, I probably wouldn't have picked Laura to be my mentee necessarily because we didn't share a lot in common. But she came to the mentorship program and she didn't have anyone to work with. So who did they ask to work with her? The director, right? You fill in where you can fill in. And so I knew, having worked with students, especially with middle school and high school students, I knew it was going to be important for me to be transparent, for me to be willing to share some of my personal stories and invite her to do the same thing. So that's what I did. 3 years later, we still have that relationship and we're still exchanging stories. And I know it all started just from that small conversation we had on the day that I met her. You know, it's fascinating to me because oftentimes in social settings, they say it's completely selfish to just talk about yourself. And trust me, I do believe that, 100%. But what I'm finding is more selfish is when we have these incredible stories that we could share. Stories that could allow us to develop relationships with people that are so different from us, and we don't share them for some reason. I think we miss a lot of opportunities. I know I certainly did. I missed the opportunity for people to really get to know who I truly was. But I also missed opportunities to develop relationships that could have had dramatic impacts in my life. And so today, I'm proud to share my story. I'm excited to share my story because I realize how much of a connection I can develop with other people, and I value that sincerely. So I'm thankful that you gave me the opportunity to share today, but I'm more excited about hearing your story. Thank you.